Welcome to the Reedville Fishermen's Museum, where we are dedicated to preserving the heritage of the lower Chesapeake Bay. This includes both the history of local watermen and the commercial menhaden industry that have grown up in the Reedville area over a period of more than 100 years. We accomplished this mission by acquiring, documenting, and displaying materials of historical importance to the area's fisheries and the lives of our watermen. The story of Reedville itself is directly linked to the commercial fishing industry that sprung to life when, in 1874, Elijah Reed moved his menhaden fishing operation from Brooklyn, Maine, to land on Cockrell's Creek that later became known as Reedville. The industry flourished, particularly in the earlier part of the 20th century, and by 1910 there were some 17 factories processing menhaden. Today, Reedville is the largest commercial fishing port in the lower 48 states, second only to Kodiak, Alaska. The museum is located on the banks of Cockrell's Creek, on land once owned by Elijah Reed. The oldest surviving house in town, the William Walker House, was built in 1875 and was occupied by various families prior to its purchase in 1986 by the Greater Reedville Association. Through the work of many volunteers, the association restored the house in time for the official opening of the Reedville Fishermen's Museum in 1988. A generous gift from Frank Covington enabled the museum to expand into a new building in 1995. Today, the Covington building houses both our permanent collection and our changing exhibits. The Pendleton building, housing both our boat building shop and our model shop, was added to the campus in 2003. Two of our vessels, the Skipjack, the Claude W. Summers, and the deck boat, the Elva C., are on the National Registry of Historic Places. This action speaks to the vital role our local heritage plays in articulating our nation's history.
The museum has on exhibit a number of boats that typify those that are used by the watermen of the Chesapeake. All of these have been donated to the museum and have been restored, some extremely extensively. The three largest boats are here behind the museum at the dock. The one on the far right, the Foggy River, though she was built in 1961, is typical of boats still used by watermen for fishing, oystering, and crabbing. She's currently undergoing restoration by museum volunteers. Next to her is this Claude Summers, an example of a Chesapeake Bay skipjack. Skipjacks were developed for the oyster dredging industry in Maryland portion of the bay, where there was a conservation regulation that required that dredging be done strictly under sail power. Thus, the skipjacks did not have an engine. They did, however, have a small boat with a large engine that could push them through calms when they were not dredging. She was built in 1911, and at that time there were approximately 1,000 skipjacks working the water. Nowadays there are fewer than 12 because the population of oysters has decreased so markedly. In her reconstruction, care was taken to meet all requirements of Coast Guard regulations for carrying passengers for hire, and thus the Summers does that twice a month, each month during the summers. The third boat here is the Elva C., which is by construction a deck boat. But deck boats were so often used to go out to the oyster grounds and buy oysters from men who were tonging from smaller boats that they came to be called buy boats. The Elva C., however, was built in 1922 specifically for the pound net fishery, although she was also used on occasion as a freight boat and a buy boat. The museum uses her now to take passengers out for a narrated tour of the Cockrell's Creek and also out in the bay to watch the pound nets being fished. There are other examples of smaller working type boats around the campus. Each of them, as do each of these three, have signage which gives you a feeling for the history, construction, and use of each boat.
This is the boat shop. This is where it all happens. This is a place that's open 12 months a year, and that's because of the eagerness and dedication of the volunteers. As you look around here, you can see a lot of different tools that are power tools, which would seem to belie the fact that we use traditional methods, but we rationalize that by saying that if boat builders 100 years ago had a drill press, they would use it, and if they had a planer, they would use it. As you look around, you see some pretty good examples of boat building. There's a small boat here in front of me, which we refer to our Mabel skiff. This is an example of a boat that's built in our family boat building program every year. At the end of June, the last week in June, it's built in 2.5 days. Families sign up. We have 10 of them, as I said, and that includes often grandparents, children, and grandchildren in one group. They build this boat in 2.5 days and they take it home with them. And we're proud of that little part of our effort here. This boat to my left is a big part of our effort here, and it's really, I guess, the centerpiece of what we do here. This boat, which is about 85% completed, is a 16-foot classic dead rise working skiff. That would be typical of one that would have been built and used in the Reedville area and still is. We use this boat particularly as a tool to teach and to continue the traditional woodworking, boat working skills here in this shop, which is the main part of our mission. This boat we refer to as our raffle skiff. It will be completed. It will go out in progress. In fact, in a couple days from the time of this filming we're doing right now, this boat will travel to a local farmer's market where it will be displayed as it is, and that is in this particular level of completion. A couple of the guys from the boat shop will sell raffle tickets. We'll make enough money to do it again. It's kind of a maddening cycle that we enjoy being in. We keep this shop open on Tuesdays and Thursdays until noon, which is the times which we work in here. So this is a very busy place on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and it's a wonderful place for visitors to visit because the volunteers that work here are as happy to talk to a visitor about what they're doing as they are to be doing what they're doing. So it's a don't miss place when people come to visit the Reedville Museum. Try to plan your trip on a Tuesday or Thursday, but regardless, the docents will bring you in and show you around as well.
Welcome to the Northern Neck Railway and the Reedville Fishermen's Museum Model Workshop. When I get the chance to bring folks in here, one of the first things they say is, wow, look at that. They're very impressed with what is here. In 1997, George Frayne and Angus Murdoch, our first two directors, decided that they wanted to have a model train set up for young and old children who wanted to come and see the museum plus see a model railway. So they found out that back in the 20s, stock was sold and track was laid on a proposed line from Fredericksburg to the end of the Northern Neck. But water travel was still so popular that the whole thing failed. The layout has been going on for about 16 years. It will be 16 this year. And about a dozen volunteers are still working every Thursday in the model shop on the layout. And it started out as a small section at the far end that was one table for the first year, and it has steadily grown till now it has its own building. They had to move the layout every year back to the Ampro plant because it couldn't stay where it was because other exhibits were going into the museum. But now the Pendleton building has been built and it has a permanent home. The layout includes homes and buildings in Reedville, Whitestone, Irvington, Heathsville, and a line towards Fredericksburg. We only run the trains from the day after Thanksgiving through the end of the middle of January because we only have a few volunteers and it would be impossible to keep the thing running through the whole year. We have one really neat thing, I think, and that has just been going on this week, and that is a workshop for young people in the model shop. They come in and have experts help them learn how to be a modeler. And that has been going on ever since the Pendleton building was built. So I hope you enjoy the Northern Neck Railway.
The Reedville Living Shoreline Garden is a teaching vehicle located on a stretch of shore belonging to the museum and to neighboring Bethany Church. It was designed to demonstrate an environmentally sound approach to shoreline stabilization using native plants. The garden was created to address several problems, including erosion, invasive plants, and stormwater runoff that wash pollutants into Cockrell's Creek and the bay. In 2005, a partnership of community organizations worked to eradicate an unsightly mass of tall, invasive weeds along the water's edge and to remove an accumulation of debris and rubble from the creek. Next, a stone sill placed in the water parallel to the shore and backfilled with sand allowed the outward migration of existing marsh grasses, stabilizing that area of the bank. Carefully selected native shrubs and perennials were then planted on a 50 by 100 foot slope, which encompassed 3 separate planting zones. The area now supports a mass of mature plants, providing color and beauty throughout the growing season. Runoff and erosion have been controlled, and the garden demonstrates a strategy to improve the water's quality in the bay, avoiding the cost of unnecessary hardscaping, and enhance the natural beauty of the shoreline. As you entered the parking lot, you probably noticed our John Smith barge. She was totally conceived, funded, and built by museum volunteers in 2007, commemorating the 400th anniversary of the founding of Jamestown. Christened the Spirit of 1608, on June 23, 2007, she embarked on a 7-day journey up the Potomac to participate in the National Folklife Festival on the Mall in Washington, D.C. As you approach Reedville by water, you will see a tall brick stack situated on a spit of land in Cockrell's Creek. Built in 1902 by the Morris Fisher Company, this 130-foot structure provided steam power for fish processing operations and has become a symbol of Reedville's rich Menhaden heritage. Today, it serves as a navigational landmark and a welcoming beacon to tourists. Over the years, time and a lack of upkeep took its toll. The stack began to lean, and the top 30 feet required immediate extensive repair. The Reedville Fishermen's Museum, in partnership with Omega Protein, formed a committee in 2010 to raise funds for necessary renovations. During the course of fundraising, the stack sustained a direct lightning strike, adding urgency to the rehabilitation mission. A firm from Georgia was awarded the contract, and work was completed by the onset of the winter of 2010. Today, a renewed brick stack that will last another 100 years stands as a proud monument to the fishing industry that gave birth to our town of Reedville, Virginia. The entire effort would not have been possible without the time, devotion, and funds provided by the members of the Reedville Fishermen's Museum, Omega Protein, and countless others. Thank you for watching our brief orientation to the Reedville Fishermen's Museum. We would like to note that this entire presentation was produced and featured museum volunteers. Please feel free to tour our campus and ask one of our docents if you'd like more detail concerning any aspect of the museum that we've briefly touched upon today. Please enjoy the remainder of your visit to the Reedville Fishermen's Museum.
Won't you help me to raise them, boys? Won't you help me to raise them, boys? Won't you help me to raise them, boys? Still when the sun goes down. Oh, the weight's on the captain boat. Come on with him. Oh, the weight's on the captain boat. Oh, the weight's on the captain boat.